Welcome to Dwarven Forge Live. This is On the Anvil, episode 93?
92.
92? Close. No, weren't we 92 last week?
No, we were on 91 last week.
Ah, son of a gun.
It would have been 92, but we had the false start.
All right.
I chose not to keep that.
Oh, that didn't count? Okay, well, that was good.
No, it didn't count.
Oh, so it's 92 and a half. This is a show where we take you behind the scenes here at Dwarven Forge. We show you what we're working on, what we're thinking about, in this case, who we're working with. So we have a very special episode tonight because we're in the studio with Michelle McGriff and Eli Alexander, the beating heart and soul of our creative department. Is that how you would describe yourselves?
Sure.
Yeah. Welcome. Woo! So we're gonna be these guys are sculptors. They've been doing actually a whole bunch of work while we've been sitting here already. We're gonna be sculpting live on camera, taking questions, requests, telling you all about the process. I don't know, what else are you guys gonna talk about tonight? What's the plan?
My favorite color.
Is it velocity of an unladen swallow?
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
African or European swallow?
Oh, I don't know that.
That was the last we saw Eli on the show.
Yes. Yeah, just whatever comes along. We're here to
Sculpt
chat
up.
with
Yeah,
y'all and let us know what you want to know about, and we'll try to give you some kind of interesting answer.
We have a big, intense development week this week for our upcoming Cities Untold Kickstarter. So we have the whole development team here, everybody all under one roof. It's like the first time we've actually all physically been in the same place for about 2 years at least,
Yeah.
right? So it's been a wild week, so we figured might as well keep the intensity, get it up on camera, and you get some glimpse of some brand new stuff for Cities Untold. And you can, I don't know if you guys have seen Michelle or Eli sculpt on camera before, or take questions, add bits and whatnot. It's a pretty fun experience. So please interact, ask questions, be part of the adventure. That's why we're here. What else is going on, Chris? What else do we need to tell?
Not a whole lot. We're actually going to have a very quick news segment today, so we can get mostly straight to the sculpting. All the stuff you guys are curious about.
Hard-hitting, clay-breaking sculpting.
Yeah. Somebody's suggesting we do a sculpt off. We can do like a speed sculpting challenge. You guys,
I know.
guys have
Speed.
the next 2
We want to
hours
do a slow. Who can sculpt more slowly?
Sculpt more slowly.
Yeah.
All right.
I think I'll win that one.
Well, I don't know, but if you have to repeat the thing, you're using your molds. You have like the technique.
All right. Do we want to get into the news and get that covered?
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. All 3 of you now.
It's the news. It's the news.
Oh, you didn't have to do it at all. No, maybe I should actually just.
I don't think Eli's ever experienced that firsthand.
That's fair. You've never watched the
That was
stream,
our.
have you?
We have these really good sound effects. You even know where they came from. It was like high end, like really.
It's always been a mystery how you guys you do that.
Yeah, we have it was an intense soundboard. Chris has an AI that will actually take a bunch of sounds and string them together in a human-like.
Yeah, they
fashion.
actually just string it together organically, so it sounds new every time.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Uncanny.
All right, just a couple things to cover. First off, if you are a EU backer from Wildlands, the EU container successfully airshipped on the 6th as we were hoping. We're just waiting for it to get to the warehouse. They were saying it would get here today or tomorrow, so we're hoping for tomorrow. We've been printing out labels. We've been preparing all your labels ahead of time because as soon as the stuff lands, we just want to rip it out of the box and ship out some stuff to the EU to make sure it goes through all right.
Is that how it works? We rip it out of the box?
You rip it out.
Cool. Don't
yeah.
tell Chuck, not like he's right here 10 feet away.
Yeah. Chuck is
when you get those
supervising
tickets, it wasn't because Chris told everybody where else to rip it out of the box, okay?
Yeah. Chuck's supervising today. Yeah, so if you got hopefully you got an email about it. If not, you'll probably get it soon. But we haven't shipped out any of the EU stuff yet, but as soon as it gets to the warehouse, we're trying to get some out by the end of the week.
Maddening. It's like it landed on the 7th, and it's been sitting in JFK, and we don't have it yet, and it's just, I don't know.
This is why we need to get our own truckers that just operate on our schedule.
Right.
We just need to own every step of the process.
Trucking, that's our new...
Yeah. It's called vertical integration.
Yeah, Dwarven Ford. Yeah.
Dwarven Ford.
Yeah, they can drive a big...
Yeah, it is like a rocket.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other stuff. Our Dimension 20 show, Coffin Run. The finale is tonight. It's our first time working with Dimension 20. Very excited. That actually just went
Live
up
right now.
like 8 minutes ago. Was that?
Is anybody there watching it right now instead of this show?
I think at least a couple people have been watching it. It's been very good, but the whole thing is available on Dropout. They also have the first episode on YouTube, if you look up Dimension 20. And then, is there anything else? Oh, one other thing that's just kind of fun. If you take a look at the emotes, Twitch changed the way they did their emotes recently. So I actually went through over the weekend and I redid a bunch of things. So now you actually get access to a bunch of Dwarven Forge emotes, even if you're just following. And since we had those extra slots opened up, I also added a couple more emotes, like the beam emote.
How does one emote?
Was that?
How do you emote?
How do you emote?
I mean, on Twitch.
On Twitch? You can, well, so for us, it's like you type like Dwarf 4 and then the title of the thing. If we were partners, we would get to like customize what the beginning of the thing is. But they base it off of your channel name if you're just, and there's all the emotes, including some of the new ones. I put the new Dwarven emblem on there. I put Dunk, Toby's cat, in there. The bread and butter emote.
Dunk made it into an email blast, didn't he?
He did, I think. Yeah.
The cat's a DF. Little.
Yeah.
Many of the cat hairs have also made it into the sculpts, so it works there.
Yeah.
Add
So-
strength. It's like horsehair plaster.
Quite similar.
Yeah.
So basically, there's no. I haven't put the 1x3 in here. I was worried that the 1x3 emote is a little too. Well, I wasn't sure what the use case would be on Twitch.
What
I
is
guess.
the use case?
It's a piece from Wildlands that you need for everything.
They
It's
made
an
they
emote
made,
you need for
they
everything.
made emotes and they had me add them on Discord. There's a 1x3 emote and then a 1x3 with it like with a cancel sign over it
Oh.
for no 1x3s over it. It was a whole thing.
There's two camps.
Yeah.
Okay.
1x3s.
So I'm not sure if that
anti-1x3s.
really belongs on Twitch, but those emotes do exist on the Discord. But yeah, I think that's all the news, unless you've got something I forgot about.
I don't think so. Let's just.
Oh, Gen Con. We're doing Gen Con.
Gooey Cube.
Very beginning of next month.
Woo!
Including Gooey Cube game. If you're going to Gen Con, check out Gooey Cube's game. There are a limited amount of tickets on that. Chance to win prizes. We're gonna have a huge Dwarven Forge table.
Chance to come up on stage and play. There's gonna be different teams, and you're gonna audience participation. It's gonna be wild.
And it's all for charity.
Woo!
So yeah. All right. Let's get into the sculpt.
Hard hitting sculpting.
Yeah.
All right, let's get in close on these. So what do you guys?
I'm-
Let's start with
I'm
let's start on the left. Ladies first. Michelle, are you ready? Oh, is everybody buckled up? Wait, you gotta do a big reveal.
Oh,
All right,
Yeah.
everybody buckled up because this is
Okay.
like so. Michelle's about to unveil some serious. This is like we're just blasting beans right out of the door here. Kicking down the door with beans.
I was asking. Yeah, blasting beans definitely sounds different.
Yeah, we are blasting beans all night, folks. Buckle up. It's gonna be wild.
I was asking. I was like, do we want to show new stuff or not? It's like, yeah, we're gonna show a lot of new stuff tonight. So
It's gonna get lively. So do we want to give a backstory on this thing? Should I get the the piece that's already cast that the
Yeah.
you want to get? Okay. Yeah. Do you want to riff, tell some jokes or something? You have a lot of them.
But if I'm put on the spot, I won't be able to think of any of them. So, what's the point?
let's see.
Let's
Let me actually
Well-
open up a thing to be taking down questions as they come in.
Oh, random thing that we might want to talk about, just occurred to me as you're talking about stuff shipping out, is we can double dip and talk about painting unpainted stuff, because both Michelle and I have some experience with that and tend to enjoy. So if the sculpting grinds down at some point, the talk of the sculpt, which probably it won't.
Just put the sculpts away and start painting.
It's right here.
No, but we can just chat about that as well.
Trying to take everybody's individual.
Just wanted to throw that out there as a fun bonus option.
All right. So back in episode, I don't know, 8 and 9. Remember that one? It was really good, right? 8.
Something like that.
We had this thing on the scene. We introduced the. Oh wait,
Little
let's
fire.
do a painted one. So this is a fireplace that Michelle has been sculpting with a modular magnetic shelf that pops off the front, and classic. Everybody here is always trying to figure out what else can we do with the thing, right? Like it wants to do the main thing first, but like what else can we do? And one of these meetings, Michelle's like, what if I did something like this? and blew up the screen with a really cool idea, which has come to fruition. You want to tell them?
Well, the basic fireplace that's going to have the LED and everything, it's just too plain.
Basic. I mean, look at it. It's gonna have the fire logs in there and an LED and it's a modular shelf and it's like.
It's so tiny. And as a nobleman, I would be embarrassed to have this in my house.
Well, you do have a pretty epic house.
As a New Yorker, I'd lose my mind to have a fireplace.
So
So
I decided.
Can you one up that? I mean, that thing it's a glorious working LED fireplace.
We're also doing some very large builds. If you guys are New Yorkers, so you're tiny little apartments, and you don't know how to breathe.
Facts.
And so we needed something that's going to fill the space and give us. This house is owned by a noble.
Or a vampire.
Or a yeah.
Most vampires are noble, it turns out.
Yeah.
Something about being a vampire seems to just go hand in hand with wealth.
Yeah.
So I decided that we needed to dress up the plain, boring fireplace with something a little more elaborate.
So the idea is, since we have high town and low town, right? We have the fireplace, and then let's make it a wild high town version. But it's the fireplace inside there, right? So you can't actually take it apart off that, can you?
Yes,
don't destroy
not right now. I can remove the chimney off there.
But just so people are clear, this is you take your fireplace, and this is a modular cover that's going to wrap around your fireplace, so you can have options for your fireplace.
Right, and
so this is the fireplace. It pops out.
You will still also be able to use this without the fireplace.
So it's like a cool alcove or shrine or weird
altar
passage or
whatever.
rich halfling's tent or something.
And so it's got a lot of repetitive design. And if I had to sculpt this, every single element.
He's going to move to match you.
I'm moving it because you're tilting up. You're popping a wheelie here. We're trying to get.
This because I have to be able to see what I'm doing. I have to face it towards me more.
Fair. Well, I will adjust to you. You get the fireplace in a comfortable place, and the camera will follow, and the audience will suffer. It'll be fine.
So.
They love my camera work. It's really one of the technical highlights of this show. We have many technical highlights, but this is definitely one of the highest lights.
It's on your business card.
Yeah.
Nate
yeah.
Dramamine specialist.
Chief creative / camera op.
So, because there's so many elements to this that are just repeated pattern, I cheated.
Well, I wouldn't say you cheated. You're smart.
Yeah.
Smarter,
not harder.
This is one of your techniques that you do so well.
I think about it as cheating because or laziness, because I don't want to have to.
Smart. It's not noble to waste energy.
Smart way to do it. Right.
So. I make molds. I sculpt one bit, sculpt it once, make a mold, and all I have to do is press clay back in there and do it a bunch of times, and we're good to go.
It's an analog copy paste. It's like a really smart way to do it, and then you can add individual
Yeah, the nice thing about it is that it ends up with a slight variation,
Because
which is exactly what you want if it were a handcrafted thing.
Because each pressing is going to have
Each
like
pressing,
a little bit
and
of
you got to
different-
put it in place and get it fixed. So it's going to get slightly tweaked. Yeah.
Well, and also you don't want to lose your mind trying to get symmetry on 8 of the same thing when you can do it once, make a mold, get some slight variations, and tweak it. Spend your energy making it cooler and more unique, and adding that extra little bits. Right? You go in and distress it, and you add the moss, and you add the probably not moss in a fireplace, but right?
Hopefully not.
No, it's really smart, and you do all these really clever bits with these, making all these molds and then putting those pieces on, and then using them somewhere else, and then when the thing breaks, you have a mold so we can go back to it.
Yeah, and that is one of the nice things is that I can take and sculpt a bit like this this little arch here with the lion head, and then I can modify that to do this center bit, open the lion's mouth so he's roaring, add a larger scroll, and change it without having to start from scratch and trying to copy the same design or a similar design. So it makes it so much easier to just build up these library of molds.
Yeah, you have an arsenal of these cool textures that you're then mixing and matching. You did it with great success on the ruins from Wildlands.
Right,
It was a master class in doing all of these cool repeated things that you could then modify and then ruin.
Yeah, and it made it so much easier to come up with slight variations. Still doing it.
Well, actually, that's a fun fact. I mean, I think we told people that, but there's unruined versions of the ruins. Right, you did everything intact, right? And then you molded and ruined the ruins. So there's unruined ruins. Tell Red Burner to cover his ears because hide his wallet.
It's too late. He's already here. Yep.
Damn.
So all of the ruin pieces, we have masters intact and easily. And if we wanted to do more broken ones, more variation of the broken ones,
we don't have to start from the beginning again.
It makes it so much easier.
Yeah, we're set up for ruined success.
What?
So, originally I put the chimney part as part of the whole, and I kind of started thinking, because this piece here, and I didn't grab an accessory, a magnet accessory, because
luckily
this,
your publicist is on the case. Chuck, the crime dog, springs into action.
This space here will have a metal plate in it so that you can add the dragon head from the inn set, the tavern set that we have, and the crossed swords and shield.
Any magnetic accessory, right? The chained crystal from Caverns Deep or anything. Any of the bits will go on there. Well, yet another classic Michelle finding. Is there a way to can we accessorize this? Can we add another little feature? Is there a way how do we get the most out of this thing? Look at that. You didn't even have to try and find Tyler to navigate the archives.
Tyler's always gone by the time that we start these.
Yeah, he makes a purpose to get out of here.
So.
Woo. Well, and what's fun too with the the way Michelle works, you rapidly block stuff in clay. Sometimes you're on the dev call, you'd be like, boom, 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 slap some clay. Eli, you did this too, right? You just sort of quickly, just really rudimentary, just bulk out a shape in a thing or whatever, and you can sort of see what it looks like. This was just started with a bunch of blocks, and you got, well, no, it needs to be bigger. No, it needs to be bigger. No, it needs to be narrow. And then, as you're going, and then I feel like that's part of how you think of, hey, maybe I could have this thing pop off, whatever. Because you're just you're just popping a cube on and popping it off. You're like, hey, maybe that should be a separate piece or whatever. It's a great way of thinking about it.
So I also know that, everything we do is 3D. We don't have just 2D pieces that only have, one real side.
You're thinking about the backs a lot. Right?
Yes.
I feel like that's the common thing. Like, well, what am I going to put on the back? Like even with that kitchen piece, it was like it's just like a brick wall. You're like, no. We got to put something cool on the back. I got to put something everywhere. Like
the oven door on the back of the fireplace.
Which could also be a vault or whatever. Put it in your dungeon and throw it up against the thing, and it's like the vault where the Lich's factory is, or whatever. It could be something, anything.
So
it's just not plain brick.
If you want to change the look, or use this as a separate piece somewhere else, you've got an alternate. And now the fancy fireplace is a little stunned.
It's totally a mouth and nose and a it's like a Disney character in Beauty and the Beast too.
It's like the character's nightmare where the furniture starts yelling at him.
Yeah, it's so good.
Sprouts eyes in a mouth.
I can't unsee it now. Thanks for sharing.
It's very Cars.
Yeah, totally.
It's totally.
We've had a couple questions about the dimensions of this and how it's all going to fit. So you were very explicit with the dimensions of all this, yeah?
Michelle's very explicit. I don't know if you've ever been on this call.
Yeah, it's designed so that it'll be 2 wall heights.
So our double high wall
will fit. It'll fit just right, and then it's just wide enough to fit between the 2 corner posts on the city buildings. So this will fit right in between that. So it's.
If it doesn't, we'll just chop off a little off the side. No big deal.
Yeah. Well, this particular this block here is 3 by 3. This back is 3 by 3, and it's off centered a little bit, but it fits right in that 3 by 3 space, which is what the inside is of a standard 4 by 4 room.
You definitely go, across the board. You're always putting the stuff up against, right? Especially because you start with clay, just like a blob of clay. You'll throw it in a room. And, hey, here's what it feels like. Like you really do that with it. Here's what it would feel like against double high wall, blob of clay. Looks good.
And I want to make sure that everything looks proportional. The dinky little fireplace really would look out of place on a double high wall.
And you put minis up in front of it to see, like the fishmonger's always showing up.
Yep.
Look at my fireplace. It's really good. Do we have any other questions on the fireplace before we pop over to Eli? Or anything? What are you going to do? What are you going to be working on? What are people going to see? Any progress that we can show? What do you want to work on while we're here? Are you planning on working on this, or are you planning on working on one of those other secret beans is over there? Where are they? Oh,
well, I was planning to fill in this one edge it still needs to have the rest of.
You see that project? So what's the what's the process for that? Do you need to press something?
Yeah, I'll start off by creating or using the different molds to create the parts that'll fill in here, and I still have the little pointed elements to throw on the top of these, and I'll have to make another of these little spirals.
How long is that going to take?
Oh, it shouldn't take too long.
All right, well, let's see.
Because
show the side one more time. They can sneak it a little closer to camera too for fun. Okay, right there. Woof, that's run out.
Run out.
All right.
So it's just a blank slate.
Nothing here. All right, let's see what happens. So, meanwhile, over on the other side of the room.
But there was one other question.
Ooh.
People were wondering how the size of that fireplace topper on top. How does it compare to the standard fireplace? Like, will it fit in there
It does not quite fit inside.
It's pretty close. though, isn't
It is.
Oh,
It
'cause you
is pretty
slide it in
close.
the,
Close.
Yeah, like if you could use it to close it off, basically. Is what they're wondering.
Yeah. No, it won't. It's too tall. But there is another piece that closes this off really, really well.
That we're not talking about tonight. Or?
No,
Which
we've got a painted one that was just used in a build
Wait.
here.
What piece?
Yeah, wait.
The freestanding curtain.
Oh,
the curtain fits
yeah.
The curtain fits there really well.
Huh.
It will close this off, and it makes this a sudden.
It's like the
Secret
VIP
pass.
room for the halfling club.
Or if this is in a temple, that you go. That's where the
Yeah.
priest disappears behind the curtain. Of course.
Pay no attention behind the curtain.
Yep.
Love it.
Nice.
All right, so
That's all the questions
let's see
about
what's
that
happening
piece
over there.
we
Let's
can
go
look.
over. Let's go over to Alexandria.
Probably way the heck
Land.
off the target zone here.
That's okay.
Right, Murphy.
We'll adjust.
I'll get everybody.
Yeah. So
Motion
has
sick.
anyone seen this
I'm gonna go
this thing yet?
I think they've seen the rough geometry for it.
Rough
I don't
geometry.
think they've
Okay,
seen-
sure.
What
So
do you
this is
want?
actually we should probably have the floor part of it too, should we? Yeah. I imagine they can visualize a floor.
Yes, there is an LED fire insert for the fireplace. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. This was just the one we had here was just a new
The fire
paint
logs
scheme.
Are somewhere, yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know where they went.
They're on Hamster's desk because he
So
was
here,
working
Eli,
on
let
it.
me show you, give you the foam.
It's true. I
You
think
can
yeah. I think
show
they've seen basically all the foam geometry for all the floors and walls.
Okay,
basically.
including the various.
I think
projecting
so.
bits
I think
and
I
so
think
on.
we've shown all of them. There might be a couple that we're
Right.
keeping secret.
The
I don't know. I can't remember what we can see for anymore because we've almost shown everything.
We did so much
Right.
geometry
Bring it to her.
with the foam.
You can bring it to
I
Michelle.
feel like they've seen it all.
right.
Okay, yeah, they
Well,
have
can
seen the
anyone
foam.
recognize this thing? Yeah.
They have seen the foam for this piece. They're saying.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a
So-
swell wall, not quite.
This is well, we are referring to it with great
Yeah.
architectural precision as the dangle room because that was a
The dangle
fun
room.
name that I think Miles came up with. Yeah. So this is another piece actually we could show them. I
Yeah.
suppose this I finished this just recently. And actually, yeah, Chuck, while you're grabbing stuff, the wood version of this guy.
Okay.
Thank you. So yeah, we've got this cool diagonal corner, and you can put a regular city wall in here of any stripe, but you may also want to have a projecting upper story room.
Yes, you do. Yes, a
And-
dangle room is what every house
A
needs.
dangle room that dangles out above the alley below.
Are we really going to? I mean, I can't stop calling it dangle room once Miles called it that. But are we like? What's the chat think? Are we calling? They live. Can I live with dangle room?
We have to do dangle room.
Oh,
It
sounds
seems
like
like-
we've got our.
It's a crime that we don't call the Small Watchtower a rabbit special, like officially,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
the only way we actually talk about it.
But it's confusing. A dangle room, you know what it is.
Yeah, every project gets at
That's
least
fair.
one thing with a sort of funny name.
Small Watchtower
the
doesn't look
Stairway to
like that.
Violence, and we had the Modular Wall of Doom, and we had the
If we can have modular wall of doom, we can have
Well, that was
dangle
just a
room.
working. But yeah.
yeah.
It's a working title that stayed in.
But yeah, everybody
Yeah,
or yeah,
same with
or the light puck, which
Well, that was to your point. You know, we were agonizing over finding a thing. You're like, you know what? The light puck with the working title. You're like, it says exactly what it is. Like,
Yeah.
don't overthink it. It's a hockey puck that has light. Like,
Yeah.
stick with it. It's
a
like
fun
it's
name.
great.
Why try and go for some
You
sort
already
of
got it.
corporate jargon about the
Yeah.
it's a light puck.
The hypnotizer.
You
Yeah.
can call it a vestibule, like some kind of suit. Call it a dangle room, like an artist.
Yeah, we're just gonna.
Yeah. So the dangle room. Here it is. It can go in this corner. It can also go in a regular straight wall between two corner posts. We just this morning finally cracked the geometry on how we're going to put a roof on it. So that was exciting because we were having sculpted the thing. We kind of needed to figure
We
that
kind
out.
of sculpted ourselves into a corner, which
Yeah.
has never happened before.
Never.
Ever.
Yeah, so this thing. So here it is. It's got a slot for any of the new narrow walls. And it's going to ultimately come in 2 flavors, wood and stone. This is the walls of the wooden version.
So why isn't this attached to the floor, Eli? Why not just make it all in one big, really hard to sculpt piece?
Because it was easier to make it in 2 fairly hard to sculpt pieces. Yeah, this is going to ultimately, the factory is going to need to make these pieces separate anyways. And rather than have them hack it off, we thought, you know what, let's make it easy on ourselves. If we need to reproduce it, let's make it easy on them.
Well, it's got overhang on the back, and
Yeah,
Miles was
yeah.
having a
This-
hell of a time blocking this thing.
If you can imagine trying to put this in a mold, a simple mold, well, you can't. It can be done, but not in a simple mold.
So the actual finished piece will be one.
It'll look like
Well,
the,
it'll be
the white thing.
when people receive it, it'll be one piece,
Okay.
but it will be probably produced in multiple parts that will then be glued together as many of our more complex pieces are. You just couldn't get all of this out of one mold because you get passed through, windows and so on.
A lot more of our pieces are cast in multiple parts than people probably realize. Like
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of tricky
Yeah.
multi-part nonsense that
Even
happens.
even stuff that is relatively like, say, some of the escarpments that are
Mhm.
relatively just like rectangular. I'm a professional sculptor. I know geometry. So yeah, it's still at the top and the bottom.
That's exactly your voice.
That's
dead
how I
on.
actually normally talk.
That's your
So
your inner voice.
This is my presentation.
Second all his energy to put
Yeah.
on this act for the audience.
Yes. So anyhow, rectangular, a big rectangular thing still has a top and a bottom part that are done separately and glued together. So when it gets weird like this, multiple parts. So this is obviously going to be on a building that is put together with a little more craft and a little more creativity than your basic hut. So we decided it should have some degree of decoration. We're going to have kind of a higher register of the wood, the kind of the basic lived-in, rundown, ramshackle stuff, and then some stuff that's maybe where the elves in town live. They like wood because they would rather be in the forest, but they do beautiful woodwork, and they put some
merchant
ornamentation.
or-
A merchant. It's the carpenter's house. It's the some of the guilds. Maybe not the banking guild. They can afford the stone, but maybe it's the wool dyers guild or something. Yeah.
But
So
it's not a thing you'd find in a farmhouse.
Right.
Traditionally, it's too hard to build. As a carpenter, he
Yeah.
as a carpenter has built houses.
Yeah.
It's like, this is too hard to build. It wouldn't be
Yeah.
too
So-
many angles.
So if you're going to build it, though, you're gonna take some time and you're going to make it a little more ornate. So we went ahead and I put rosettes on it, which echo the corner posts, the fancier version of the wood corner posts. So we've got these small rosettes, and which they also will play nicely with. Let's just show this piece for a sec. This is the the large corner, and as we were working on this one, just kind of looking at the geometry, it became clear that we kind of wanted mock corner posts because of the way it will fit against the rest of the buildings. If say this side is an exterior wall and you have a corner post here, it would look weird if this didn't also have a corner post, kind of repeated pattern when you get to the corner. And likewise, when you come around the corner, you're going to want to see the rest of that. So I ended up kind of working in faux corner posts and then an archway to make it a little more interesting. Just again, something to class it up a little. This is just like that, probably part of the guild house or the elvish home or the carpenter's home, nicer part of the wood part of town. And then on the inside, we also just wanted...
And then this is going to feed, right, when this is
Yeah.
assembled,
Yeah.
when these two pieces are together,
Yeah.
that's going to flow into...
Yeah, so you've got this arch here, and then you've got this small arch here, and that carries across, and then you've got these couple, and then you'll have your insert. And if this is multi-level, since we're going to have another piece that goes on top here, there'll be some more of these pairs of faux corner posts on the other two short faces, so it'll create a pleasing little tower. And then on the inside, went ahead and did just something to make it a little more characterful. some built-in cabinets and little shelves. You can put books or treasures or a keg of cider, whatever you want on there.
Definitely a keg of cider.
Yeah.
Well, this is also, I feel like that was one of the things that we were eager to do going into this cities, just like chances to do character bits, right? Like everything in the original cities was very square, very plain, very flat, whatever. And here it's like you got a chance to do some depth and some character and something interesting. And it's like, it's a fundamental building piece, but it has a lot of cool character. So it's exciting.
Yeah. So then there's this guy, there's the floor that goes with it, and now I'm working on this piece, which is, this did get to be one piece, although again, CMS probably will actually cut this apart and then glue it back together. So this is a smaller sort of a bay window type of piece. It's going to have some little windows in here, and then once again, you can fit in. Well, I haven't actually quite finished.
Oh, we're
cutting
doing it
this
live
slot.
to see if it works?
It probably does not, because I haven't really cleaned it up. So, I'm kind of pressed down in there. I'm not going to push my luck because I don't want to tear up the clay.
Live on camera.
Yeah.
This is what makes it become the right shape.
Yeah, right.
I just
he jams in a prototype.
That's how you
push.
push the clay around.
Yeah. Well, what I will actually do something like that where I put it in a little ways, like, okay, shave a little bit, add more, shave a little, push a little further. So get to the point where I don't have to cram it and it just goes in and out, and then it's probably the right size.
Science. Right there.
Science. That's very
and that,
sophisticated.
when the pieces don't fit together, you know why now.
Yeah. There's a lot of that involved. So, and then we were just chatting earlier about how can we make this one a little more interesting, and it's going to be coming off of some corner posts here. This space is a little tight with the windows here for putting in more faux corner posts, and I could do something just here, but we're thinking, maybe it's time to do something just a little different. So I think I'm going to try doing some sort of a little raised panel here on either side of the door, just so it feels in keeping with the same style, but just something that's a slight change. We'll see how that works. And then I'm just going to have fun with wood grain.
Was there a diamond on the front under the
here?
slot?
Well, we're going to have another opportunity for connectivity. So this is part of our standard floor edge pattern. We have these little diamonds and these parallelograms, which will be where the biscuit holes hide out for joining floors together. And on this piece, maybe this is just a bay window, but maybe you put a door wall here, and then you want to connect that via a bridge to the neighboring building, because this is actually how the thieves from the floor below escape into the warehouse when.
Do you notice that every time we talk about putting a bridge on a thing, it's thieves?
It really is.
Nobody else nobody else would ever have a bridge on the second story. It's clearly only thieves, and they're often halflings. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I guess how many role-playing sessions revolve around you go to visit the Glassblowers Guild and they take you across the Sky Bridge for lunch, and it's really nice.
Oh, I love that module.
Yeah. I mean, lots of role-playing opportunities, but at some point it kind of wears thin. So yeah, you want to be chasing someone across the bridge and throwing them off it, and if they're not a thief,
you get to the Glassblowers Guild. There's a scream from upstairs. You can go, they've taken her across the Sky Bridge. You got to.
The thieves were robbing the Glassblowers Guild.
Brigands again.
So you can connect, among other things, a bridge there. You could connect a scaffold. Maybe this is right on the edge of the water. Maybe this connects to a dock that goes out over the sea, and it is a fisherman's home. He just catches his morning flounder right off the dock.
Put the suspension bridge on there.
Yeah.
Put the natural bridge from Wildlands. Do that. Stone bridge right up to your treehouse.
Well, maybe there's a cliff here, and that just projects out and just stops right there, and then you build up.
It's reclusive geomancer who's sculpted this magic stone bridge to the front of his cliffside house.
I'm really excited for the Wildlands compatibility with all the paired peg action we have going on.
It's wild,
those,
lands. Yeah, it's wild. People are going to be able to do a lot of neat.
Yeah, there will be
know yet.
Cliff houses and swamp houses and so forth. That will be a lot of fun.
So you've only done a little bit of work on this so far, right? This isn't exactly what it looks like when you first get it. You've done a little bit of stuff, but
I basically cut out this slot, and like I said, not completely, and I just laid out this very shallow groove around the edge and that bit where the biscuit's going.
Yeah.
I haven't even double checked with Nate as to what's going on this side biscuit wise. Is it just one in the center? Is it two?
Two to match the
Two.
floor.
So yeah, right.
Yeah.
Of course, it has to be Duh. All right.
Nailed it.
Where is it free? Yeah.
So what do you want to tackle tonight? What
Well, I want to basically get the board layout in there. I probably cut some windows in, and I think I'll just try out this plan of putting a
Play with
raised
these
panel on
panels,
there
right?
and see what we think of it.
Play with the character online on the interwebs here,
Yeah.
so you can see where it goes.
Yeah, and I'll just do some wood grain because that's something I don't think I've really done for the folks out there and chat
Because
about
we had
that.
requests for wood grain
Yeah,
specifically,
well,
right?
somebody heard that I did a tutorial on it somewhere, which is kind of just
I may have blabbed about it on.
Yeah.
You may have brought it up a couple times on stream.
yeah. So
But
yeah,
it's
so
pretty fascinating. These masterclass, these snippets, this online. I don't know. They're really cool.
Yeah, so I'll just do some of that and chat about what I'm doing while I do it. Maybe at some point. Should I do wood grain first, or do you want me to mess around with the panel and maybe go back to Michelle for a minute?
Why don't you want to block out? Want to kind of tell us what the plan for the panel is?
Yeah.
And we'll go over and see what Michelle's up to, and come back and see how the panel evolves.
Yeah. So at a quick look at this, what I'm thinking is this is about the width we're going to want for this window. It's a 1/2 inch wide, which gives us roughly 3/8 on either side. If I go that wide coming around the corner, I'm left with basically nothing to do character in. So I think we'll just have symmetry here, and then around this corner we'll have narrower bits on either side, and that gives me a space in the middle. So I laid out very roughly what that distance is going to be. I'm thinking I would probably want the panel to come up to the same height as the windows would come up to over here.
It seems appealing.
Yeah, just looking for appealing shapes and sizes. I'll probably match the height of these windows because this might be next to that on a building, and that would make sense. So I'll double check what that is, and then I will take this lump of clay which came out of there, and make some panels and pop them on there, and we'll just have a look at it. Yeah.
Woo.
So
All right.
let's start with that.
Clock is ticking and a sculpt off. You guys didn't know it was a sculpt off.
Oh, good.
I'm a little farther along.
Yeah, well, I'll have to move.
And Michelle's finished. All right. Well, the winner.
Curses foiled again.
Yeah.
All right.
The real voice is coming out again.
Yeah, you gotta be careful.
He's
about
got
that.
several different ones in there.
Someone will figure me out who I really am.
How many voices did you do in your Edgar
Raven?
Allan Poe Raven?
I think there's 24. I do a
24.
version of The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe where every verse is in a different accent. We'll save that for a different stream.
Yeah.
People are requesting that we make a miniature that's a little dog curled up on the floor to put in like taverns and fireplaces and stuff, and call him Biscuit.
Biscuit the dog.
Yeah,
I knew a dog named Biscuit. It was a wonderful dog, actually.
That's gonna be
that's
our.
good. You'd suck if that dog was like a
Yeah.
monster.
She was a whippet, I think.
Whip.
Oh,
or-
Biscuit
so it looks
the
like the
Whip-
really
Whip-
like narrow.
Yeah, very narrow dog, yes. Very
not
quick.
even skinny, just
Very
narrow.
light, yeah. Yeah, and could run 900 miles an hour. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool
So
dog.
Not
we
quite
can,
greyhounds, but
We can have that as like our $4 million stretch goal. Is Biscuit the dog.
Biscuit the dog.
Yeah.
That would
I
be
like it.
cool, actually. The guy she was the dog of someone I built a house for, a wonderful man, named Porter Perham. And he had, his whole life, he had dreamed of having a home that he wanted to call Horse Meadow, which was the name of his great-grandfather's farm in southern Vermont many years ago. And when he was about 80, he had finally saved up and planned it all out very, very carefully. Of all the people I've ever worked for, he was someone who obsessed over everything, but when he got it right, he really got it. Like, we would spend days like holding up boards to mark out the different possible sizes of a window so he could figure out exactly where it should be in the room and how it would be like, oh my God. But then when we finally built it, we were like, Porter,
He was right.
that was exactly the perfect window in exactly the perfect place.
He had 80 years to figure it out.
Yeah.
Good.
So yeah, that was.
So Michelle, speaking of 80 years, figured out. What's your progress on the on this fireplace here?
Well,
What do you, what
I've
do you-
got the bottom railing. I'm working from the bottom up, getting each layer built in as we go. I still have to make this little pattern here.
Do you freehand that,
along.
or is that a?
Yeah, that one's I'm just freehanding. There's just times when it's easier to freehand something in, especially if it's a change that I make at the last minute, because I'm building everything in layers. I don't always like how parts are coming together, and so I've got to change things up and get a little more detail work in. So
I'm stranger to last minute changes. I think we're right till the damn thing ships. So there's always a chance of one little.
This isn't
silly
working.
little
This
thing.
isn't fitting. The rat is in the middle of a biscuit.
Yep.
Did you
There
migrate
was a
the rat?
question about that actually.
I migrated the rat. Yeah. Yep. The rat is a new rat, based on the soul of the old rat.
He's a whole big rat.
Yes. So
It's a
what I did
born-again
was
rat.
I knew this probably wasn't going to work, but I figured it at least would give me the right volume of clay. So I cut out the original rat very carefully, and I made a place for him, and I moved him over, and I put him there. And by the time I got him pressed in and adjusted and whatever, he was smushed beyond recognition.
Died.
But then it was exactly the right volume to make a rat out of. So I then used that teeny bit of clay and made a new rat. And in fact, Casey got it on camera, so people can watch the rat take shape at some point when whatever that footage is comes to light.
Do you want to show the rat? Should we grab it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that answers IME's question. She was asking if you found a new place for the rat or not.
Yes.
Nate had shared that story about the
rat,
the
the disaster of the
whole
rat.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. There is a new.
Drago says humanely relocated.
Yes.
Like one of the Wildlife Foundation got to like move him to another.
Yep.
Let's see. Rat cam.
No rats for harm in the making of the city.
I've got about 5 general sculpting questions for when things we're good for it. We'll wait for Nick to get back with this though.
Yeah. So let's show the rat. Okay. So, did you show the original?
No, I didn't even show it. I was just talking about. I don't
okay.
remember what we were talking about, but we were talking about
Where
thoughtful
is he?
touches.
He's lost. He's gone.
Yeah.
There he is. Okay. So, if you zoom on in, you will find
So
the rat.
originally, so show the top of this. Show them what
Yeah.
this
Okay.
piece
So,
is.
this is a cobblestone floor. This will be the city streets and sidewalks, and this is the bigger one, nice big one for building out big squares and so on. And we love putting what's come to be known as thoughtful touches, little details, creatures, whatever, hiding in corners and things.
I
And
think Erin named them thoughtful touches.
Yeah,
She was
I
talking
think- I
about
think-
painting, like, well, there's all these little details, these little thoughtful touches, and we have to give it a little special thing.
yeah,
Ah, thoughtful touches. That's it.
Yeah.
TM.
yeah. So we like doing that, but it's trickier in a city than like in a forest. You can put critters everywhere. In a city where you have a bunch of highly repeated smaller pieces, if I put a rat on the bottom of the standard window wall, say, you're going to see that rat again and again and again, and it's going to get kind of stupid and repetitive. But I've been wanting to put things in.
Well, and they're often, it's like, they're hidden, like,
Yeah.
it's usually a thing that's hidden that's
It's
there
more
for-
fun if it's hidden, yeah.
And it's
yeah.
thing for, often for people who are painting their own pieces, it's like a little thing you'll discover as
Yeah,
you're going.
yeah.
Like, oh, here's a hidden little
Yeah,
something,
yeah,
like
exactly.
this neat little stuff to discover as you go.
Yeah, because inevitably, like, no matter how much Erin and Hamster do with the painting and how much we're able to get the factory to duplicate their work, we add more stuff. There's I've been, like I said, I'm excited to talk about painting stuff because I've been getting into painting wildlands things, and there are so many things in those. But it's harder in the city, and you want them to be kind of hidden and tucked out of the way. So usually when you're looking at a cobblestone street, you're going to be looking at the cobblestones. But occasionally, you will see the edge. And, you know, well, that's a boring edge, and then that's just regular stone, and that's stone. Aha! Something is here, and it's a rat.
So originally the rat was, we weren't originally going to have biscuit holes in the side of this. So you sculpted this clever little rat in.
Yeah, he was right
and then
about
we
here.
did the math on where the biscuit holes are going to be, and it was right in his face.
Yeah, we had this long discussion. Should we have them? Should we have them? We went through the pros and cons, and yeah, it definitely makes sense because then we'll be able to do all kinds of additional geometry and be able to connect it. And then Nate's like, wait a minute. Oh no.
The rat!
So this is the new and improved rat. He got.
Can you move him a little closer to camera,
sure.
please? Wait, woof.
Okay.
There you go.
Let's say it. Thank you.
There he is. I'm a rat.
Okay. There we go. Yeah. So there he is, a rat. And yeah.
So if you know, in what is this thing? What year are we in? 2020. So in 2020, late 2023, when you get your Cities Untold pieces and you're painting your cobblestone floors, you'll see that rat, and you'll know the story, the rat that died and was resurrected, the new soul.
Full body plastic surgery.
Is he related to the Dread Hollow rat?
He probably is. Yeah. Should we retell that story? Probably everyone here has heard that story.
I know that we caught it as a video and put it on social media.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, does
know
anyone out there not know that story? And I'll tell it.
the story about what pieces?
Not
It's
know
on
it and
the
care enough to hear
stump.
it. It's on the wide stump
The wide
floor
stump.
Didn't we
that
talk
goes
about
with the.
we talked about this 2 weeks ago on the air or something? One
it's
week
the
ago,
one
From
right?
Dread Hollow?
No, he's right.
We talked about this rat.
We're talking about the rat that
Long pedigree
that
of
was
rats.
chewing on the.
There are people here who haven't heard it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll do the speedy version, which is that there's this piece about yay big, stump, floor, rocks, trees, whatever, and it goes on top of the cave in the Dread Hollow escarpment, among other things. And when I was working on it, Nina had sort of roughed out the basic geometry and turned it over to me, and I was doing the detailing, and I found this one weird little bit of texture, and I was like, hey Nina, what's this bit here? What were you doing with this? And she said, oh, a rat got into the studio and was gnawing on the clay. That's what that is. And I said, oh, interesting. Well, I'm going to immortalize that rat. And so on that piece where the rat had been gnawing, I sculpted a little teeny rat just to remember his contribution to shaping the clay.
Well, it led to the rat massacre at Groton Street. I got those huge the zappers. There were these. You plug them right into the AC.
Really? I didn't even hear about
and
that.
the rat would go in and just get electrocuted. And it was like I got 3 of them and put like really delicious peanut butter and cheese. I stuffed them full of goodies,
Nice.
and it killed like
you would've
8
gotten
rats in the span of a week. It was just like I was on just a rampage. I mean, you need to get them to drive them out of the studio.
Yeah, that was a little off-putting when you'd go in there in the morning and like
Dude,
something would
rats are
move.
eating the sculpts. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't care about everything else, but you can't touch
can't,
the
yeah.
masters.
Yeah, no,
you've gone
can't-
too far.
can't make sculpts.
Electrocution.
Or take a drill to them or things like that.
Story.
Well, if I caught them, yeah, they come out at night. They were smarter than us.
Story definitely gets a lot less fun when you point out. Yeah, and then we killed that rat.
All of them. Everyone that rat had ever known.
Well,
is murdered.
but that
Like,
rat,
like-
that rat is immortal.
Yeah.
He will always live on the Dread Hollow
Oh, I
stump walls.
heartlessly and aggressively massacred as many of them as I could get my hands on. And then, of course, Gary put out rat poison. We were complaining to Bill, and then Momo got into rat poison. It was a whole.
Momo got a rat poison?
Oh yeah, it was not a good. Had to make him throw up, and it was like, yeah,
Well, at least he only threw up.
yeah. He was fine. He was hardy. Michelle, what have we got here? What's on?
Well,
you're
I'm
filling
getting
in
the
slime.
filling that empty space.
So this thing. So you pressed that into a. That was a mold.
Yeah,
Where's the mold for that? Where's the? Oh, is that thing that was?
yeah. This one. This is the lion one here, and this here is that little decorative bit. And I just cut out a bit of clay that's about the size, and
What's awesome is both of you guys make molds, so you understand very, very well what it takes to cast a piece, right? It's anybody can sculpt. I mean, not anybody can sculpt, but you can sculpt something.
I can do that.
No, but you can put something together, but putting something together that's actually castable, relatively easily is a real challenge.
yeah.
And we certainly push the envelope on that, and I think a lot of
Oh,
our
yeah.
coolest stuff results from us doing things that the factory's gonna hate us, but this is just so cool.
But you'll look at the logic. You'll
Yeah,
say, well,
yeah.
you
We
know,
try, like,
you
let's
can
not
pull
make
this,
them hate
you
us
pull
anymore than
this
they
way,
have
and
to,
you cut
yeah.
this thing off, and like there's,
Yeah.
it's not. We're
Yeah.
not just like throwing a Hail Mary and like, well, I
Yeah.
hope they can. We have actually done that, but.
Well, yeah. But we
Yeah.
try not to. We
Yeah.
we think of it as like, all right, if there's a way we can do this that's not stupid, let's not do it stupid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
every once in a while. Yeah, we got a new one.
So,
Pick up some clay, Nate. Show them what you can do.
Yeah.
oh,
Let's see.
Boom.
There's another one already.
yeah. All the details go really fast.
So you have to clean it
And-
up after you.
Well, it gets stretched out a little bit, so I have to tinker with the basic shape. But for the most part, even the teeny tiny. Let's see, can I get in close enough to see some of that?
There
Maybe.
you go.
There you
Wow.
go. Oh, that's good.
This pattern inside this inner arch is just sort of a swirl pattern, and that comes out perfectly with the molds. This is a shore. The hardness of material is called the shore. I don't know, scale, something like that. And this is a shore A, which means it's not a rigid material.
It's really, really soft.
And then this one is a 30, shore A 30.
Why does that matter?
The detail, the harder the mold, the higher the number, the more rigid the mold is, and the more the details will come out. When I first started, I was using, because I wanted to cast things quickly. I didn't want to have to wait 6 hours or 24 hours for a mold to cure. And so at the time, the best product for me was a Shore 14. And the details just weren't as clean. And Smooth On has just recently got this. It's translucent. So when I'm doing molds that I have to cut to open them up, I can see the product inside. I can see the master inside.
Well, you really know your resins and your silicones, and like you've played with a lot of materials.
Yeah. Luckily, there's so much information out on the internet that it's pretty easy to learn quickly. And since I had originally started sculpting to do to create my own molds and sell the molds, I had to learn what the best product was to give. And there was a learning curve. There was a lot of ruined molds and poor casts, and so I had that forced practice.
Well, I'll tell you that the trial and error thing is you've never given that up. Like everybody on the team is really good about trial and error, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times it does not work the first time. In fact, most of the time it doesn't work the first time, right? We're tinkering a lot and it close, and it's never a linear thing. Where you just yep, there it is, got it, nailed it, go.
Yeah. It's exciting when it is the first time, when something succeeds the first time.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen often enough that we can count on it.
No.
It always works half the time.
10% of the time. Yeah. It always works in the end. Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
It always works the last try.
We
Usually.
we never give up.
Yes.
That's fair.
Sometimes we run out of time.
Speaking of which, speaking of time, I guess.
Speaking of giving up.
We need to
This stream is over.
Yeah. We need a giveaway word.
Ooh, a secret word. You know, should we have our studio audience suggest a word? We have
Sure.
a live studio audience tonight. We have,
He's somewhere there. There he is.
There he is. Choke on camera. He exists. He's like Bigfoot. Don't worry, it's so underexposed nobody can see you. Yeah. All right. Well, so Chuck, do you want to give us a secret word? Some audience participation from across the.
We got 4 votes for
Ginger
Dangle.
cookies that I'm gonna steal.
Ooh.
I haven't had any of those yet. I need to.
There's 2 more containers, so
That's fair.
Good luck with ginger cookies.
I need
Yeah.
to bring some home for your kids.
We're saying ginger cookies?
Ginger cookies, one word.
All right, give me a second to put that in, and then you can be off to the races.
Ginger cookies?
Just a moment.
Double heavy on the cinnamon. Michelle
All right,
baked like
ginger
iron.
cookies, all one word. If you want a
200
chance
cookies.
to win a $50 Dwarven Forge gift card for the web store, this is available internationally. Does not matter where you live. You are eligible for this giveaway. Ginger cookies, all one word. All
I mean, we
right,
could have chosen dangle, but you know.
we could have chosen
ginger
Dangle.
cookies.
Yep.
dangle
Ginger
cookies.
Oh,
The dangle cookies.
So.
That sounds unsavory.
Yeah.
That's why you chose it. What do we have? What's going on over here? Where are you?
Well,
You done with this thing yet? What's going on?
not quite.
hurry up.
But I did sort of rough out a panel.
Ooh,
What do we think?
it's pretty cool.
You like? Well, it occurred to me that another thing I could do would be to kind of cut it in. It's kind of like a raised panel door where you've got the So use the same outline, but just kind
You
of.
want to do the other side, cut it in, and we can have a vote.
I could do that. I mean,
That's a terrible idea.
the advantage to cutting it in would be that you can put things flat against this.
What I like about it sticking out is that it's sticking out.
Yeah, it adds some interest. It is a
No,
little
we're
different
looking for
from.
we're looking for
So-
trying to break these flat walls and like give
Do
you know,
both.
Do both,
Cut it in.
and then stick it out.
but have it stick out beyond the face.
A double
Right.
angle.
This is the hokey pokey.
And then,
I could do that.
Just so that then we can still butt things up right at the end, to
Well-
that side.
I mean, what I was going to do was essentially cut in the outline, but then have it pushed back out to this face.
you know
Right.
what
So-
could
Yeah,
you
that's
know
what I meant.
Okay, right.
You know, it's a problem if you put. I mean, it's a single-use case, but if you put the 1x4 or the 1 1/4 by 4 against that, biscuit that in
Oh, and
with
then you wanna put
on
railings.
either side.
Yeah.
For your thieves to escape from the glass blowers via the sky bridge,
Yeah.
Here's an interesting question.
we're gonna run into trouble.
Does this prevent us from going dangle to dangle?
Yeah. If we're going to go.
Well, this
Yeah.
is a bay window, not a dangle.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
Yeah, no,
So-
dangles. You can
can-
dock the dangles. Like they're
But
designed to
bay
they're
to
designed
dangle-
meet against each other.
Bay to dangle or bay to bay would then be a problem. Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing that's
Although
a
bay to
little-
bay seems like a rare.
it seems like a pretty weird thing to do.
Yeah.
Bay
Yeah,
Bay's a little odd. It
yeah.
could be like
Dangle is like
it's an interesting like narrow passageway kind of.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those. This is the sort of thing we agonize about. Like, all right, here's the thing you could
Endlessly.
conceivably do. Someone's gonna want to do it. Is it
worth-
actually important to have that be a possibility, or is it better to make a thing that works better 98% of the time? But you just can't do a
Do
bay
this
to bay
one thing.
window backwards, upside
We literally
down,
had that
reversed
discussion
inverted.
today.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, what did you say? Tough nuggies or something?
I don't know.
Well, it works everything. You know,
Yeah.
it does everything it needs to do except for this one fringe case.
Yeah, and so I don't know that we care that much about the fringe case, but it might still look better if, I don't know, just because.
I think it should maybe be flush because I
Yeah.
think we're going to want to put. I
Yeah.
can see putting that
or
1x4.
the little market stall might want to go against there or something. You know, there's the courtyard walls.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So
the interior walls, which are now also exterior. Yeah.
all right. So fail. We'll
Case in
try.
point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fail as fast as we can.
Yeah. Exactly. So we
So
look
how
at
are you gonna approach this other one? What's
So, I mean, I'm just gonna freehand it. I'll cut this in pretty much very slightly angled inward, and then sharper angle back this way to create an inset rectangle, and we'll see how that looks. I won't go too deep because I don't want to get too far. Don't want to narrow this too much.
and there's
But-
an armature in there.
And there's an armature in there. Maybe the first thing I'll do is just see how deep it is. Oh,
You don't have much to
I don't
play.
have-
Make
well,
one side go out and another side go in, so
Wait,
that
so
way when
you-
you go bay to bay, they just nestle into each other.
Yeah.
So it'll look bad on its own, but now you can put it
Yeah,
together.
it'll look terrible, but the one time you decide to do bay to bay,
It'll look terrible, but it's fully modular.
Can we just just be really clear for the audience here? You're using a X-Acto knife as your ruler.
Yeah,
Just,
in this
okay,
particular
cool.
case,
Just wanted
yeah.
to double check.
I
really
do have a
appreciate that.
ruler here marked out in tenths, hundredths, and the usual,
Tenths of inches. How
Yeah.
often do you use tenths of inches?
fairly regularly actually. It all depends on the particular thing. Like the, can I grab that? Yeah, this shell had this. This when I was doing the arches on this.
Let me get a painted one. That's
Yeah,
really hard
okay.
to see on camera.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm already up.
So this is, as probably most of the audience knows, this is the door wall from the ornate stone style, but ashlar as we're calling it for short. And it's got this arch detail across the top.
Hey.
That is much clearer here.
See that?
And yeah, so there are things about laying out this that were just, as I recall, this is about like 3.5 tenths or 35 hundredths between the points of the arches.
And
that
this was,
turned
there
out
were
to-
a lot of iterations on this. Like you were
Yes.
trying to figure out how to, because then you had a
Yeah.
design you liked, and you're like, well, how do the windows work? How do the doors work? How does the double high work? How does it
Yeah.
land with this? What happens when you get through corner posts? What happens when you this? They were like,
Oh yeah,
so
yeah.
many
Because this, for example, we wanted to make sure you could put, as you can't do with the original city stuff, you could put a wall that hits like right halfway and still have a door that functions. So we're not kind of creeping onto the doorway. So you're just shy of the door trim. That was important because particularly with our new 2-inch floors, you'll be able to build stuff that has just a 2-inch projection.
When an arch-shaped door, how does that?
And how does this work with these arches? So we had to do, it turned out that 9 regular intervals works nicely for that. On the double high walls, we went with bigger arches because they feel more proportional to the size of it, and they work better with the facades, which we were kind of developing in tandem. But we still wanted to keep the feel of this design. And this is all based on some Romanesque. There's a really cool abbey that we particularly love the look of, and it has kind of inset arches. Not exactly like this. We went a little fantastical, but it's based on some Romanesque designs. And then a bit more Gothic with the pointed arches. I think the original had rounded ones, but
Well, that's part of the fun is finding
Yeah.
all these references, right?
Yeah.
Finding real life references and then fantasying it
and
out a
then
little
yeah,
bit, right?
then
It's
kind
like,
of making them our own. So
hey,
it-
we
it's-
steal
yeah.
this thing, steal that thing, flip that thing over, throw some Alfierce on it, and call it a day.
Yeah, yeah. So yes, so the long answer is I do use the even the hundredths of an inch with some regularity, but also there's a lot of stuff you can just do by eye and by feel
X-Acto knife.
and X-Acto knife. Yeah, so I can. It turns out I can go in a little bit. So we'll see if that's enough. We'll see if that's enough. So I'm
I
just
also
gonna-
do have a collection of
viewers.
general questions about sculpting and stuff for whenever we.
Yeah, well, while I'm conducting this fascinating inset cut, we can chat about that stuff.
I also am gonna roll the giveaway real quick.
Oh yeah, ginger cookies, last chance.
Ginger cookies, last chance. I'm going to roll it in like 20 seconds, and then I'm going to read the question. So if you haven't entered ginger cookies, all one word, to enter for $50 gift card for the Dwarven Forge store. Let's see. This first question comes from Subtalon. What biome/area would you love to sculpt for Dwarven Forge but haven't yet?
Ooh, Hayes. Well, hi, Subtalon.
Yeah.
Subtalon, yeah.
Remember with Gen Con? We hung out with him. He wanted some. Stefan put us in a lottery and said you get to hang out with Dwarven Forge, unknown to them, if you win. And he won.
All right, rolling the giveaway. Hoser 2118.
Woo! Congrats, Hoser. You get to hang out with Dwarven Forge tonight.
You just got to get yourself down to Gen Con and.
Yeah.
So biomes we would like to sculpt. I would love to do some interesting, different, shall we say, ethnic architecture for different fantasy races. So maybe.
Yeah, you were always, right? You were always talking about that.
Yeah, I mean.
What if the elves built it? What would it look like? What's Gnomish on here? What do we?
Yeah. If we could, fit all the pieces into the mold budget, there'd be a bunch of dwarf and halfling and elf and dragonborn, kenku, whatever stuff going on.
Some birdhouses.
Yeah. Well, we might at least sneak some bird nests onto the roofs and so on. So yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun. I mean, Michelle's obviously already done some pretty beautiful elvish architecture with the Kalantiri runes. I did a few little bits here and there and things that might count as elvish, but it would be fun to do. I mean, to do that, to do orcish, to do gnomish stuff. How about you, Michelle?
That's a tough one. Atlantis.
Ooh, there are some people who have asked us to do underwater.
What is
as a
is
theme
this?
at some point.
Is this like a sunk Atlantean architecture, or is this pre-sinking, or is it they're now living under the water?
Sunk. I mean,
So you take your ruins and put water on them, reliquariums
Yep.
style. Okay.
Yeah, we just fish tank decorations.
You go to the fish tank aisle and buy all the yeah.
But we just cast the fish tank decorations in Dwarvenite. Make slight changes.
Or Egyptian would also be, because to me, Atlantis is heavily influenced by Egyptian. And that's what I ended up doing for one of my infamous fireworks displays. I did a whole underwater build.
On fire.
On fire. Where Atlantis was, there were a pirate town above it and Atlantis below. And the fireworks display was set up so that I had fountains and things that pointed down. So they were
The fire
physically
started in Pirate Town, in other words.
Yeah, they were attacking Atlantis, and Atlantis was attacking back. And so I had 2 boards of fireworks
Fighting each other.
facing each other, and then on the back, I also put a back wall with a bunch of. There's a firework that pinwheels. Mm-hmm. And I put sharks and other fish. So I painted the back to look like an ocean, or look like, like it was all underwater. And randomly the sharks and other fish were spinning off, catching on fire. I used paper for the sharks and stuff, so they all catch fire.
For those of you who know, Michelle used to spend just months prepping these elaborate 4th of July fireworks things and blow them up. It was like casting these crazy works of art and then blow them up.
Well, saying blow them up implies that they were destroyed, but none of them were.
They've all lived
and they ended up on eBay. The pieces and sets ended up on eBay for sale with spell damage. The burns and stuff.
Amazing. Authentic battle damage.
Pro tip, if you want spell damage, shoot Roman candles at your Dwarven Forge stuff.
Woo!
Burn marks.
Says customer service over here. Officially, did you hear that? If you want spell damage, shoot Roman candles at your Dwarven Forge.
There will be no tickets related to this.
Yeah, send that one to
All
Eric.
different will be ignored.
We'll just make a quick tutorial video and put that out.
Wow.
Well, that's one of the reasons in the beginning why I didn't get into but I wasn't in the first Kickstarter, was because Dwarvenite catches on fire
Right.
and will burn and melt.
You weren't interested because of the.
I wasn't interested because it was flammable.
I need fire retardant bits. Like, oh, that's unbelievable.
But then when Caverns came out, I couldn't say no.
That organic, like yeah.
So even though my collection started in KS2, I went back and bought one.
Well, your collection is epic. It hasn't, didn't slow you down either.
You have like a museum in your basement.
No, I have a warehouse.
Rolling shelf units of Dwarven Forge.
Just the racks of You have like a
Yeah.
supermarket set up for all your Dwarvenite.
It's more like that scene in Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Receding into the distance.
Oh, looks like there we go.
That was a fantastic question. Thank you, Subtalent. What else? Do we have any other big general questions or piece-specific questions? Do you have a question about a thing for Cities Untold that you've seen that you'd like?
We have a
Answer.
question about cities regarding things they haven't seen.
What is it? The
Any
question.
beans regarding what the hero buildings are?
No, I don't think. Mostly because I don't want to. We don't know.
If plans change, you don't want to.
Yeah, there's too much in flux right now. Like, we don't have corner posts. Like, we need to. We got it too. We can't. I don't want to say anything if it could change. I don't know.
It's fair. Let's see.
I would say it's been a very fruitful week, and it's only Wednesday.
People were saying that they do like the in-cut look on the
Oh, good.
piece Eli's doing.
Yeah.
No pressure.
I mean, I think I prefer it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I haven't. One thing I would normally do if I is having pressed this on here, if I were going to make this a permanent piece of this, having now mostly neatened it up, what I would actually do is go all down the edges and smush
your
in
camera too?
like. There, yeah. Okay. I would actually go. I'll just do a teeny bit of it here and kind of do this the whole way down. That's a way that you can kind of blend the clay together, so that you're kind of running perpendicular to the joint, and you do. I mean, you have to then fix it, but it kind of creates a bond between the two layers, and it makes it less likely to peel off when it's
Because you
molded
just
and stuff.
you stuck that physically.
Yeah, I stuck it on, and I mean you can get it to adhere to some degree, but just to make sure it's going to stay there, because right now, well, let's see how well actually it's actually stuck on pretty well. But no, you see how that peels. So it's yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, and hopefully the armature isn't close to the surface here. If you can see there, I just hit the wood right at the back, but I think that's deep enough. I think that works, and that's not going to show. And I mean,
I hope it does, because it can't go any deeper.
I put a teeny bit of clay in there, but yeah, hopefully this side, because one thing that is tricky, like when well, it's usually Miles these days that makes up these armatures for us, and getting the clay exactly the same amount on the surface on all surfaces is the exact same thickness is challenging.
So there's a wooden armature, or
Yeah.
sometimes a 3D printed armature or a resin armature. There's something physically hard inside there to help the clay keep shape. And sometimes our plans change, so the thing that you had in there
Yeah.
is now a problem.
Yeah.
No,
And
this
if we
one-
make them as
3D
thin as
printed
we
armature,
can, but
blow dart, something like that.
Yeah, you hit a blow dart
yeah.
halfway through.
I made a prototype the other day, or a quick sculpt, and ended up using the rest of the dart.
Yeah. Yeah, this is not
So
facetious,
we,
this
so
is an
we
actual
here at
sculpting
Dwarven
technique.
Forge, we use the whole dart.
The whole dart. No piece of that blow
Use
dart.
every part of the dart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see.
You should see what we do when we use a battle axe.
They're wondering if we're planning on making a V filler for the corner posts. You guys wait for you to be done with the legs.
We not currently, and it, it's we. So the question is whether we're going to fill, like, the corner posts when they're exposed have a V sort of cut out. We had a list. We sent out a survey.
In there.
It was 2019, I think now, asking people all about cities, and one of the things we asked about was what are the problems with the existing city system. What are the things? And one of them was the cutouts on the corner post, and that was of all the problems, that one ranked last. So we kind of have deprioritized filling the V in favor of answering all sorts of other challenges.
Yeah, it's a thing we've thought about. And it's not a thing that we hate the idea of doing, but it's just like we have to prioritize.
Well, and part of the problem too with making clean posts is that, like, corner posts are without the V, so you could just have a clean post if you're just doing one wall on the side, they're not actually symmetrical based on where the peg is. So in other words, you have to have a right and a left flat post in every style. So it's suddenly a staggering amount of
And a double flat.
sculpts. And a double flat.
Yeah.
And if you want to do double high and whatever, like, it really is
It
a
snowballs
lot.
pretty hard.
It snowballs really. And then now we're looking at Tudor, fieldstone, wood, and ashlar times whatever, a regular, a double high. That's what, 3 to 2, 6, so for 24 corner posts. It's a lot.
Yeah.
He's a lot. But it's a very good question.
Rabbit's getting cheeky. 'cause
Isn't
he
Rabbit
said-
always cheeky?
Yeah, well, because he said, like, about pieces that they've seen or know we're making. So he's like, oh, how are they enjoying sculpting those sidewalk adapters for the new building shapes?
Oh yeah, they're really coming along. Well, they're highly adapted adapters.
They've been worked out a lot.
Yeah. So where are you now, Michelle? What's going on here?
I am currently cutting in the brickwork, and I use a silicone sculpting tool to kind of round the edges of the bricks so that it's not quite as hard a line.
Why the soft tool?
Because it won't leave a hard mark in the clay. If I'm using, my needle or any of the other tools, when I cut in, it leaves a hard line, and the silicone will smooth out imperfections and kind of clean up the lines. This particular one is a wedge shape that's really, really good for bricks.
Also, the fact that you use a needle for a lot of your detail sculpting just still absolutely blows my mind. It's one of my favorite fun facts.
I'm not using it so much right now because one, I don't have my magnifying light, so I can't get quite as detailed. I can't see quite as detailed. And the fact that I've done most of the needle work already and
Those are
made it the
pieces
mold.
that Yeah.
That actually does tie into one of the questions we had. Stargazing Kiwi was wondering what your go-to sculpting tool was. I know a lot of it depends on what it is exactly you're working on, but is there anything that you tend to gravitate towards? Is there a tool that, like, if you can use it for the job, like, you'll prioritize it over anything else.
This little Barbie pole arm.
Barbie Polar, is that a formal title? Where did that come from?
Well, when we went
It really
to
is.
my husband and I went to Gen Con.
Who is this husband? Does he have a name?
Chuck.
Don't let Chuck know about him. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
We took a little basic green stuff class, and they gave us tools. And when they pulled out the tool, the whole set. The first thing Chuck said is, "Oh, look, it's a little Barbie pole arm."
It really is. It's amazing.
And it has kind of a slanted, rounded end on the opposite side. And I think I use this
I've definitely had those in my mouth before.
for anything that requires work above the needle. Doing the shaping, the general shaping. The edge is sharp so that it narrows down. So it's really good for cutting in the lines for brick and stone, and cutting off extra bits of clay to add to a piece.
So you've got you basically use the Barbie rapier and the Barbie polearm. Are you?
Yep.
What about you, Eli? What are your what's your
Well, I have a few favorites. I mean, this is probably my all-time favorite.
These are both just dentist
I think
tools,
that's how I
right?
got my tooth pulled out. Right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's definitely kind of a dentist tool looking thing. It's got this side is flat with a nice angle, like a sort of very narrow spatula. It's very slightly rounded. This end is kind of almost like a hockey stick. I use this one more. The angle is nice for the wrist. You can get it in all kinds of places. Great for smoothing stuff. You can do very careful, gentle work with it. You can also make sure, like I can do leaves with this and do all the individual veins in the leaf, depending on how you pivot it.
And you've done a lot of
I've
leaves.
done a lot of leaves.
Thousands, perhaps.
Yes, I have
Yeah.
probably literally several thousand leaves.
Has anybody ever done like a leaf count on any of the dread hollow trees?
It'd be interesting just to do it on well, here's the most recent
Whoa!
leaf
What
thing.
is it? Whoa!
I'll just
whoa,
throw
whoa,
one
whoa.
at you here.
Just threw that out of
Yeah,
here.
a bean, or it's actually an ivy.
Get it?
Yeah. So yeah, this is an organic facade to go on our building. This is a bean, right? This is
Yeah.
Yeah,
As
nobody-
yet
nobody
unseen.
ever-
Okay, no one had any idea. Okay, so add a little bit of color, a little bit of greenery, a little bit of overgrowth, perhaps, to either a more ancient and storied part of the city or a more abandoned and untended part. This will fit as a facade on a wall, and it's a bunch of ivy. There are a couple other ivy pieces. Just counting, I'm just curious, and I just count a little bit.
So this is a chance to add some organic texture, some color.
There's at least
something that'll-
100. There's at least 100 objects
irregular,
there.
asymmetrical. Oh, way more.
So
lines.
right here is about 35 or 40, just what I'm covering with my fingernail.
There's a couple hundred on there.
So, yes, so that would mean probably that's easily 100, 200. Yeah, there's probably pushing
600.
500 leaves on this right here. So, yeah, I have done several thousand leaves.
More than several thousand. Those all
Yeah,
the dread hollow
there's
trees.
all the dread hollow trees, and the wildlands trees, and the bush in wildlands. That thing just by itself has quite a bit of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The hollow
Yeah.
hedge is pretty. That's pretty sizable.
So
Yeah.
So you probably have 1,000 leaves just in the
Yeah.
city.
Yeah, and then
Without
never mind like the
even
floors.
without us
Yeah.
even getting to.
Yeah. So it's good for leaves.
So
a
the-
couple
the
other
hockey stick,
This is
dental
probably
tools
my all-time favorite. Depending on the project, though, like this, I'm doing a lot of this with these couple. This one is more just kind of like a fine chisel point. It's got a square point on the other end, which is useful for like when I'm cleaning up these indentations in the sides of floors. I can scrape and be very precise with 90-degree angles. This guy has a square tip and then a chisel, which when I get into doing wood grain, which I don't know how we're doing, I should do some of that to just show people
What
my
time
approach
is
to
it?
that. I don't know what time it is.
8:30.
Hey, 8:30. You should
Okay.
you should wood it up.
Yeah, okay, I'll do some wood. So we decided we like the panels. Is that what we're going for, folks?
Sure.
Looks good to
Choosing
me.
that now? Okay. All right. You
They voted, yeah. They
Especially
voted.
when you consider like you're gonna be putting like a narrow door in the center and everything too. So like having a simple.
Well, you
Yeah.
could put a solid, you could put a
solid,
window, or you could put a door. It's
Yeah.
modular.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's gonna whatever you put in there, it'll look good, right? It'll
Yeah.
flank.
It should be simple because odds are something more eye catching is gonna go in the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah. Okay. So there it is. That's the distinctive touch for this. All right. So now I'll do some wood grain. All right. So let's actually just finish laying out our windows. So we probably want the window to be the same height as this one, even though it's going to be a different width.
Yeah, how many hundredths of an inch are we talking here?
I want to say this was. Let me see if I remember. It's pretty close to 7/8, but it might be off by a 32nd. Yeah, it's 7/8. Okay, that's an easy one. 28 32nds for those who are counting. This ruler is marked out in 30 seconds, and I definitely do work in 30 seconds. In fact, the floor pieces, we had to, because we have those inserts, and we had to do a slight difference in size between the opening and the insert that goes in it. The inserts, or the openings, had to be 1/64th larger in
A
each.
64th of an inch.
64th of an inch. And so
What's that in millimeters?
a 64th of an inch is probably like a quarter of a millimeter. It's a very small amount. It's half of one of these, so if you can imagine, that's pretty small. Yeah, here's 64ths on this side, so
That's silly.
they're quite little. Yeah, it's about a quarter millimeter ish.
We both use mine goes down to 64s.
Yeah.
And on the back side it has decimal equivalent.
Yeah, this one, it's down to hundredths on this side, yeah. So I don't use the
You're
hundredths that
comparing
often.
how
but
minute your rulers are. It's like, yeah, well, I got hundredths of
and
here.
the crazy thing is, you can see that
Yeah,
too.
well,
Like,
mine's smaller.
This
Yeah.
is
I mean, like I can look at this and already, like, I know I have to fix this because this is a good 30-second narrower than this one is. So I'm gonna.
Yeah.
it
But
bugs
this
me.
is literally this is the day to day
Yeah.
at Dwarven Forge,
Yeah.
honestly. Like this is
All right, so there's our window shape. I don't think I'll cut it out now because you have all probably seen things get cut out before, and it's not so exciting. I'll do some wood grain. I think we'll just have some nice broad corner boards here, which will kind of echo the width of these things, even if they're not getting the rosettes. So that will carry that over. So we'll just start by doing the side of our boards. And there's kind of several phases to doing wood and the wood grain. And the thing about wood grain is, realistically at this scale, you might not even see wood grain on a real board if you shrunk it down to about 1/60th scale, or it would be very, very tiny and very close together. But there's something just pleasing to the eye. It's more interesting to suggest the grain of wood. And essentially, I mean, everything you do in miniature is kind of an approximation of the real full-size thing. Just as an actual miniature character, generally they have oversized hands and faces and eyes. And
we have to
do some-
exaggerate so
yeah.
it'll read on the table.
so it reads on the table. And so, I mean, some wood does have very broad grain that's far apart depending on how it's cut. So that's a thing to keep in mind. Like, to some extent, this is always almost an impressionistic approach. But nonetheless, you want to be as true to nature as you can. And wood grain is created by the circles, the rings formed by a tree. Every year, a tree gets darker, harder wood in the winter when it slows down growing, and then lighter, paler wood that gets wider rings in the summertime or in its main growing season. And when you cut across that, they're kind of cut lengthwise, and like if you imagine slicing an onion, you see all the different layers of the onion. Same thing with a log, you see all the different layers of the wood, and that's what the grain is. If you have a perfectly straight tree, you get perfectly straight grain. And
how many perfectly straight trees have you seen in your days as a carpenter?
there are a fair amount, actually. I mean, not absolutely mathematically perfect, but straight enough that they're quite good. There used to be a lot more. Like if you do
everybody's cut them down
covering
for
older
lumber?
buildings, yeah.
I heard they were
Yeah.
all on a spectrum.
Yeah, they definitely do fall on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And depending on what you're using the lumber for, it's more or less important to have a straight-grained piece of wood. If you're a medieval carpenter, which probably is who was making these things, someone in a quasi-medieval fantasy world, You're not running it through a sawmill probably. You are probably splitting it or sawing it by hand. And you would prefer straight grain, or you might be using an adze, which is an axe with the blade turned sideways, which for hewing beams and things. With an adze, you can, grain is less of an issue because you can just kind of chop across it. But if you're splitting it, you want it to be fairly straight. So the fact is, a lot of the boards are going to have fairly straight grain, but that's a little boring. So what we do, I like to mix it up so that I try and use straight grain, particularly where it's like most realistic to expect it. Like if you're going to have like arches or anything where strength is important. Either it's going to be a massive honking oak beam, which might be a little gnarly and would have some kind of interesting patterns, or it's going to be pretty straight grained, something that doesn't have big knots that would cause weak spots. Boards.
This is what's fun is Eli is thinking about the logic of how the thing will be built on a regular basis, right? So it's not just like, oh, artsy, I want to make it like look cool, whatever. It's like, well, would it be a supporting beam, so they would use lumber that had straighter grain, and so I'm going to make that one reflect it, like for everything, right? From wood to stone to whatever. Like you're always sort of thinking like, well, how would they actually build it?
I think it's
What's
also
the
just
logic?
I think it's also just more vital for him since he built his house. So if he didn't think about it,
he'd be dead.
Yeah.
Well, right, but I worked as a carpenter professionally for over 20 years before this became my primary job. So, so I know pretty intimately how it all goes down, as it were, and I enjoy thinking about it, and I enjoy bringing that here and kind of adding that extra bit of verisimilitude. So, so a lot of the grain is going to be relatively straight. So my process of creating it. The other thing is a good way to think of grain when you look at it is almost like contours on a topographical map that shows elevation, because it kind of does a similar thing. You have low points and high points, which are essentially if you imagine your straight grain tree and then it's got a bump in it and then you cut across it to create a board, you're going to create an island shape, a circle and that also happens where you have the branches coming out. So anywhere there's a knot, there's likely to be a slight circle around it where the grain is expanded, or there's a kind of perpendicular grain, and then you cut across it while you're going lengthwise with the main grain. So I will initially, just kind of draw out some grain. So this is a fairly straight board on a corner board here, something that was relatively easy to make for our hypothetical medieval carpenter. This is probably one nice big chunk in the corner, so I'm going to just wrap this grain around the corner. There's two ways you can do that, depending on how it's cut across the rings. So if we assume that the rings are going this way, then this grain is going to meet up with a mirror image of itself, what you'd call book matched, as it were.
Huh.
If the center of the tree is oriented differently, then this grain might carry right around that corner because the rings are coming in from a different direction, which if we do some rings on the top, I can show you. But yeah, so right now this one, we're saying
some rings on the top.
Yeah, so in this case, we're going to say this piece, is a nice big corner post, and it's going to go right like that. And so this is going to support this corner of the building. And yeah, so not all of this is exactly reflective of exactly how buildings are made, because again, there are things we need to approximate, and there's, we want it to look good, and these are all kind of hypothetical weird cross sections as if you slice through a building. So, but we're trying to make it as close as we can and still have it appealing to the eye and just reasonable to make and so on. So a nice big corner post, if you're making post and beam construction, definitely something you might do. All right, so we'll come back up.
When you can feel, we want people to know that we thought about it and constructed it in a way that feels logical, and we care about all the details, and it shows in the final work.
Yeah, another interesting one actually is like the detailing on the side here. This kind of three-level, it's basically the sides of all the floors, and so we used it as our detail on all of these pieces, which will be lined up with the floors. So we had a consistent kind of horizontal detail. And I'm not aware of anything in real-world carpentry that's exactly like this, but there definitely was some Scandinavian carpentry that kind of had a similar multi-level horizontal detail, like around the tops of walls and things. And we wanted something that would, because we want to kind of downplay the biscuit holes as much as we can. I mean, we'll have ways to hide them for those that don't like them. But if you're just going to be using a piece and have that there, we wanted it to kind of feel like it's just part of the design rather than just a hole that's punched in. So we added this triple horizontal board, again, sort of reflecting some Scandinavian style of carpentry.
Well, that's
Right.
it. You spent a bunch of time trying to figure out what are some designs that logically make sense, look good, and also could justify all these
Yeah.
these damn biscuit holes all over
All
the
this
place.
weird stuff. So yeah, a lot of sculpting actually, when you're making modular things, is weirdly enough, it's a bit like acting. If you're given a role, you need to find a way to, find what your character's motivation is, find a way to justify what the character is doing. When you're sculpting, if you need something to fit together in a particular way that's maybe not how you actually build it in carpentry, like you wouldn't.
Well, like this
Yeah.
thing is a.
Yeah, if you were
Yeah,
building
like
this in
that
real
piece of
life, you would
geometry,
have
that's
a beam here and here that extended far into the building to cantilever this out to support it properly. You wouldn't make something like this and slide it into your wall. But that's how we have to make it so it's usable. So
So in this case, the actor is a plank of wood.
in this case, the actor is a plank of wood,
I feel like I've acted opposite
and the
plank of wood.
director is saying, "Yo, plank, what you need
Yo,
to do, what you need to do."
That's how directors talk.
Yeah, that's absolutely worked with me. Okay, so yeah, so as we see here, this particular post is a quarter, not exactly a quarter, a chunk of a very large tree, and so the center of this tree is out here somewhere, and so you can see the grains are crossing this way, and it's also was leaning slightly this way, so that as you sliced it downward, you got this book-matched edge of the grain here. So, and then we'll just see the rings of the tree come across there.
I've never seen just wooden acting plank. It's amazing.
Yeah. And then, but I don't just draw the grains on there because then it looks kind of like someone just drew the grains on there. Actually, there's one more step that I didn't do for this one because I probably want this to be on the exact angle of the corner, but that I will typically do for the rest of the wall adjacent to it. Say under this window here, we're going to want a horizontal piece for the sill. This is a weird one because it's so narrow. Like this wall got kind of a proper, this window got a proper trim around it. This one feels like it doesn't have the space for that. So I think there's just going to be just a sill in here, in between these couple big posts, and that's what you might end up doing on a narrow piece like this. So these little windows are a slightly funky thing. If you look at the inside, they're just going to fit in here.
Yep.
But whoever was making this bay window probably wanted as much light in there as possible, so they would have pushed their luck on the trim there a little bit. So anyways,
the purpose, right? The purpose of the window, the reason they were making it is to bring in a lot of light. So
So they would, for that reason, they would probably sacrifice having slightly funky looking window trim. That's my take on this. I could cut some trim in around here, but I think that's going to start getting busy. Yeah. So, but what I will do, all right, so this is going to have a sill, and then it's going to have some smaller boards under it. And then what I like to do is, because these are all hand-hewn pieces, this would never all be a perfectly flat surface. So although I did this one pretty much flat to the surface of the original geometry, the rest of it I'm going to tinker with a bit. So I'm going to just very slightly adjust the surface with my handy-dandy chisel tool. And there's going to be inset boards. The boards are because although medieval carpenters were capable of some pretty impressively symmetrical and regular stuff, unless they were like building cathedrals, in which case they weren't using wood, there were some limitations on what they could do. They did not have bandsaws and so on to work with, and they were hewing stuff by hand. And if a board came out a 1/4 inch thinner than the next board or whatever, they're not going to be like, oh, well, I just spent 4 hours on that, I'll just throw it out, it's not quite. No, they would use it because it doesn't really matter if it's slightly inset relative to the corner post. So they would put it in there. But it is going to be slightly inset relative to the corner post, so it just makes it a little different. This one maybe is thicker on the side rather than top to bottom. Thicker on one side than the other. So we'll do a little bit of that. We'll make that one a little radical. And then this one maybe is
Kind of radical that board is.
adjusted slightly differently there.
Whew.
And then this one maybe has a slightly dished surface, let's say. So we'll just kind of cut that in just a little
And
bit.
this is the stuff. It's hard to see often in photographs, like you know. But when you get the piece in hand, you look at it, there's just this irregularity, this life in the piece that is like looks like wood. It's like I love it.
Yeah. So yeah, this is why I prefer all of this done by hand rather than digitally, because although you can do a lot of things faster digitally, it loses some of the organic, just the kind of the real character of it, the fact that it was made painstakingly by hand, you know, by a craftsperson. This is actually made painstakingly by hand by a craftsperson, and some of the, you know, I'm actually like taking time to make it less regular, and that's there's no way you can exactly duplicate hewing a surface digitally. And not that I'm obviously hewing the surface, but it's closer to the real thing, and that makes it feel more real.
And you do digital sculpting.
Yeah, I
so
do.
you-
I did.
you
Yeah,
know,
I mean, I
You're
do.
not a snob about it. There's
Yeah, no.
definitely.
Oh, there's plenty of
time-
times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when I can, I would rather do it this way.
There are just times where just the human touch, like the imperfections, are like what makes it
Yeah.
warm. Like one of my friends, she's a composer, and so she'll use like sound libraries for stuff. But she says whenever she does something that has like horns or something in it, she just hates using sound libraries for it because the little like
It's not
the
real.
flagging
Yeah.
of somebody's breath giving out at the end of a note or something,
Mhm.
like all those like little touches, especially in
Yeah.
like breath instruments, like
Well, really, it's
Yeah.
all these imperfections are what keep customer service busy.
yeah.
Yeah, it's all my fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't tell Chuck that. He'll sneak up on me. Yeah, so maybe this one actually is just a little bit loose. Maybe it's sagged a bit.
So
This
Zoe
nail
Mage
here
also brings up a
rusted
good
out,
point.
you know, so it's...
So Summary Mage says that given that wood is comparatively plain as well, having small details goes a long way towards giving it personality. So if you didn't do
Absolutely.
all
Yeah.
this, you would have pretty, like a whole building made of this
Yeah.
could be pretty bland.
Yeah. So okay, what I'll do maybe on this one here, just for interest, is I'll do this side with a little more character. Like I said, what I like to do is do a lot of the boards relatively straightforward, but then you know you got to use all your trees. You've got what you got. Maybe there's a really gnarly oak that just fell over in a storm, and you're not going to just let it sit there and rot because you're a thrifty medieval carpenter, and you're going to hew that sucker up, and it's got some interesting grain going on. So this one's got some real wobbly stuff. Okay.
How do you decide when to do the wild ones and when?
I mean, that's okay. This is a funny thing. It's kind of an aesthetic choice. Like I feel I get a sense of what's going to be pleasing to the eye, rather like if it were truly random, you'd get a bunch of them in one place and none in another place, and then you'd always be kind of annoyed when you looked at it, you know. So what I try to do is mix it up in a way that is going to be aesthetically pleasing.
Because it feels purposefully random.
Mhm.
You know, when you look at it, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, there's just enough character around here that it just like, it's organic and feel. It's not too busy, but it's not too boring, but it's not too like there's like
There were
there's a flow.
Yeah, I've always thought I should like write a little paper on the art of
Yes.
fake randomness, because when I put a slate roof on my house, and when I got the slate originally, it turned out I had like 24 different either colors, sizes, shapes of slates. Right, I got some Welsh purple, some different kinds of weathering and non-weathering purples and greens and browns, and some mottled ones and so on. And they were all not just different kinds, but each kind I had a different amount of in terms of square footage.
Wow.
So it took some very particular math to figure out how much of each kind to use in a given section of the roof. So I didn't get to the end and be like, oh crap,
All
the
the
last quarter of the
purples
roof is all green, you know. And then that would just look horrible. So it was a very deliberate, quasi-random pattern.
Mathematically calculated
Yes,
randomness.
yes. So it was exactly the opposite of random, but done artfully to try and look random. which is just kind of weird. But I mean, I think the result was pleasing, and sort of the same logic is applying here. I mean, I'm not actually doing math because I can put as many of whatever kind wherever I
Hey,
need them.
Dragos asked you, did you freehand all the patterns on this on the floor, the cobblestone?
No, I did create. This was something I originally laid out on graph paper.
Yeah, you sketched
and I made, I sketched it and I played around because we had been looking at different cobbles, and we liked, there were some that had these kind of cool fan shapes and circular shapes, but they didn't tile. And we wanted to be able to have our grid in there, but we also liked the circle, and we just, so I played around and found this pattern that, you've got all these overlaying circles. Like there's a circle here, but it's also offset here, and it's also offset here, and offset here. And then that also creates these sort of star shapes. So then what I did was I created basically a stencil to allow me to do the basic layout. And then from there, I cut them all in and gave them each a bit of individual personality. So I did the rough layout with this. So this would be a fairly hard one to do purely by eye.
Well, what's amazing is we were just looking at paint options on today. Aaron has done all these different patterns. There's so many patterns in there. You don't realize how many patterns are in there until you start putting paint on and like see what all the options are.
Yeah, because every inch tiles, but it's also
It is
So-
definitely
Let's
a
look at
gnarly
the
board.
fireplace for a sec. See where you're. How are we hanging out over yonder?
Well, I guess that answers Tim's question. Have you ever considered running a master course on this?
I mean, I'm just
Who would
dipping into it, but yeah,
The-
I can go on and on about this stuff.
Yeah.
the Dwarven Academy?
It would be fun to like make sculpting tutorial videos if you guys are around more often. I think it's the only thing. We just would need to be able to set time aside. And when you are here, it's like no, all the time needs to go into like
Right,
making
actually
the piece-
sculpting.
making
yeah.
the pieces for the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Amy is very excited to paint paint the cobblestone. She does unbelievable, super creative paint jobs.
Sweet.
Like,
Well, there's people when we showed
Yeah.
the Ivy facade, people were freaking out. And,
I love seeing what people do, because I mean Ivy's a fun one. Like one thing about Ivy is like we were talking about this, like should we add any, should it have any berries or any other details? But like Ivy can be green, it can be brown if it's withered, it can be brilliant red in the
Yeah,
fall.
what they're saying is they're saying we need green, yellow, and red options for the Ivy. And I'm like, I don't think we can offer that many.
But you
Well,
can
so you
always
do it
you can
yourself.
always do it yourself. Yeah.
Should be a fairly
that's not a
simple
hard
bid,
one
though.
to.
Yeah, that's a relatively easy one, yeah. And you can have some dramatic differences and some really cool effects that way, yeah.
Right, so Michelle, what's progress here? Where are we at?
Well, I'm ready to start cutting in this pattern here.
Freehand?
Yeah, freehand.
Live?
It's
Uncut?
already-
We're going closer.
It's already come such a long way.
Now, normally I would do this with the needle because it's kind of a
It's very intricate.
fine detail, and I really need the magnifying light to be able to do that. So this will probably come out kind of rough, and then I'll have to
Adjust.
fix it. I'll fix it once I have actual magnification.
You do so many like small details like that. Do you use like the magnifying light for pretty much most of your work?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Probably like all the runes, yeah.
Everything that I do. This is a challenge right now to sculpt because I can't
Can't see it.
can't see it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't
Yeah.
I don't have enough light, and I don't have the magnification. And usually
Well, then
it's
don't
much
do it then. If
much
you can
closer
hold it
to
up
my
there, it's easier
face.
to-
I'm
It
used
is
to,
almost 9 o'clock. So if it is something you would rather save,
not to finish this.
Yeah.
if it's the only thing left, I mean,
Well, it's
Yeah,
not
there's
quite because I've also got to do this little this S pattern on
there's so many.
Is that
These
a mold?
two.
I
Is
didn't even
that-
notice that one.
that one.
Yeah.
That one is actually just freehand
Wow.
because what happened was I was trying to dress this area up, and it just, I was trying all kinds of different things.
Yeah,
and
you've
that happens.
played around a lot on this. This thing's been kicking around for a little bit.
Yeah, I get something done and think, oh, it doesn't quite look right, and so I'll cut it off and redo it. But when I started doing this and liked what was going on, it was, too late to make a mold, to just redo it. So I figured,
Yeah, just do it 5 more times.
I also just noticed you've also got them alternating directions on each pillar too.
Yeah, I wanted to have, I didn't want them to just all be the same way. Now, when I was first doing these twists, I had gotten more than half of them done and realized that I didn't do them all the same way, and it looked off. It looked bad, and so I had to cut them all off.
Do you twist those and then press them on?
Yeah, these are based on a square.
Like a blacksmith would do it. You take a square rod and twist it.
Yeah. So that you get that deeper, that sharper edge. And,
That's what the pasta roller is for.
It's funny how
You have a pasta roller
some
to
of
make
these
your
techniques like echo things from different crafts.
how they
and so,
actually do.
Yeah.
yeah. I tend to roll out all my clay into flat. And the pasta roller is awesome because I can do whatever thickness. And I actually calculate out how big a piece I'm making, so I know how many layers of the clay is exactly that
Wow.
thickness. So it makes it so much easier to be more precise. Because I can just layer up. I need the number 1, 2 of those, and 2 number 3s, or one
So
number
you're
3.
like Legos. Because you have like 1 or 2 Legos there.
Just a few. Well, I like modular building things. That's why Dwarven Forge is awesome.
That and the artistry.
Yeah, I think you get a lot more detail in
Than
Dwarven
Legos.
Forge. Yeah, than Lego.
Oh man,
Wow,
just
those are famous.
But
so you're using Sculpey, right?
yeah, this is Sculpey. Eli's doing Monster Clay. Monster Clay is nice, but it's too thick, too hard to work in the molds.
Mm-hmm.
And it and green stuff, they're just too, they trap air too well. So even if I heat up the Monster Clay to put it in, I'll get bubbles and whatnot
You found
trapped
this is
in there.
This is the medium that you flourish best in for this specific types of the super detail stuff. It's like
The right tools for the right job, right?
Yeah, it does have the downside that it's more fragile
Oh, man,
than
We've had that happen.
the graveyard of shattered Michelle pieces. Like,
yeah.
Was it the Ram Pillar? No. Which one was it? There was one in Reliquaries that wasn't there?
the Mystic Crescent broke several times.
Right.
Yeah, because we kept adding to it. We thought it was done, so
Even
it's-
through like 5 major iterations or something.
yeah, it was ship it. Okay,
Send it back.
bake it. Oh no, we need to make it bigger. It doesn't have a great its profile is too narrow at the top. Let's add some wings on it. It did. And
Okay, now
so,
ship it. For real? Yeah, no.
well, the first crescent got shipped, and you had it in hand.
Yeah.
when we made the first change
Yeah.
because we were
Yeah,
seeing.
you still had.
We
I
realized
keep.
we had to add like the wings and stuff.
Well, no, that was
No, it was
before we,
before that we added the
added the
base.
base.
Base, right.
And you know what? It was so worth it. I mean, it's such a showcase. Now that base, like the story you were able to tell around the base of that thing.
It's true. We didn't have the
Yeah.
have the murals at first.
No.
Yeah.
It was-
Oh wow.
Yeah, it became this like just the perfect vehicle for a thing you were excited
Yeah.
and
Well.
hoping to do.
As somebody who doesn't sculpt, my favorite material is green stuff because I like watching the sculptors panic about about the
Yeah.
time limit on green stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when I'm sculpting with green stuff, it's always like crash, clatter, boom. I'm like throwing stuff down and grabbing stuff.
Because like green
And my
stuff,
wife's
you
like,
like
"Oh, it's all so stressful when you're doing green stuff."
because green stuff you like have to mix two things together, right? And then that
Yep.
like activates
Four
it.
things typically.
Four things.
When I'm,
And then like it hardens after a bit, so you have to like finish sculpting before it hardens.
yeah.
Why would you ever use green stuff? What's so good about it?
Well, when you finished it with it, it is
Very tough.
very tough. Yeah,
That's
it's
fair.
very durable. You can make tiny, intricate things with a sword or a narrow projection that's not going to just bend. Like if you made I don't know, say we wanted to do a gargoyle on the side of this that had tiny arms and a face sticking out, whatever. One little bump with your thumb and the whole thing is smushed. I mean, we do very small, intricate stuff in both of these mediums, no question. But if it's very likely to get handled in a certain way, it's just and you can just do certain kinds of structures with that are just unrealistic with this.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, I love green stuff too. It's all a question of the right
Right tool for
medium
the job.
Right tool for the job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing really thin, delicate pieces requires something a little better, a little more durable. The manga meat in the kitchen.
Oh yeah.
That
was a
was
tiny bit. And because it's so small, like it was probably you didn't have to worry as much about the time limit because it wasn't as big of a
right.
thing to have to do.
Yeah.
And mixing a tiny ball of green stuff when I'm working that, just barely fits on I stick it to my nail.
I remember when we were up at your place, Eli. I remember like when you were working on the Artificer reliquaries, a lot of that stuff was a bunch of small green stuff pieces that you then put together.
Yeah, and or say like going back to the leaves and the trees, like those big forest trees, that's all green stuff. But I didn't do it all in one go, obviously. I would mix a batch, and you can keep it in the freezer and it retards the hardening, and then I'd bring out batches. So I'd work over the course of a day. I would have more, it would come out of the freezer gradually, and I'd get, however much of a tree done.
2,000 leaf day.
Yeah.
So where are you on this thing? It's
Cut the window out.
We gotta
Okay.
wind it on down.
Well, I just cut the window in real quick. But one thing I'll just do real quick is sort of show a bit more of the evolution of the wood grain, because I've adjusted the surface just slightly to create that sense of hand-hewn structure. I drew in the lines. Now they look kind of like drawn-in lines, and wood grain. The edges of wood grain does lift up over time if it dries, so that's not entirely unrealistic. But it very much kind of looks like it was drawn in. So what I typically do is I will revisit it, just literally sort of shaving off all those raised edges with my teeny chisel tip, and this adds just again a little more of that very slight unevenness to the surface that just makes it feel more like a real old wood wall.
Mm-hmm. It's got a little bit of warping.
Yeah, a little bit of warping. So, and this is probably a piece of oak or something. This one's got some funny stuff going on. So this is where there would have been bulges and burls where you're cutting across the grain, and you get the kind of islands like in topography.
That would have been flattened with a hand plane, so that seemed like the look of a hand plane too.
Yeah. Yeah, or in ads if it was done a bit more roughly. And then I go back and revisit the grains and
so you do
adjust
the
them.
grain, you smush it all up, and
I
then
smush
go
it all
back
up
and
and
do
then
it
go
again.
back and fix it,
Do
and
all
then
that-
I
do all
just
that
kind of
careful work and then
there's kind of a back and forth there where I'm sometimes I'm re-smoothing the surface with the edge of this tool because it simple pivot, and I can do that, and then see that lifted up again. So, and then I'll just keep working that until I feel like it feels about right for you're seeing the grain, you're appreciating it's there, it doesn't look like it was just scratched in.
Well, because also doesn't it displace clay when you scratch it in?
Yeah,
sort of
exactly.
pushes
It
up
pushes
the
it
sides.
up, and then you got to get rid of it. And like I said, edges of grains do rise a bit as wood dries in many cases, depending on the wood and circumstances. But you don't want it to all look like it was just, drawn in. So this creates a more authentic feel. So anyways, that's, that's the final step. Well, no, usually there's some distressing afterwards. You create this and then you nick it up a bit and you put a few scratches where something climbed in through the window where no one was looking and so on.
Well, that's the thing, is so I can act like I'm doing something. I say, well, give it some distress, Eli. Give it, a little more weather. It needs a little more. Ding it up. It's been around for 100 years.
Yeah.
And this is why all of our chairs have bits of clay embedded in them, and the floor tends to get covered with bits of
Everywhere.
clay.
Yeah, because look at all these teeny little, I'm literally pulling off slivers that are, the size of a comma on your, newspaper page, and again, and like little, and it goes everywhere.
Yeah, when you're cutting into lines, when you're every little step of the process, you're adding more little tiny bits of clay, and you just end up, at the end of the day, covered.
Dotted
Your
with
your whole work surface is covered with bits of clay.
Yeah, you get blobs like this built up from teeny bits, just gradually added. All right, get rid of that bit. That's going in there, and
Well, let's.
That's why we always have a something, a mound,
pile of bits.
and I'll nick something with my fingernail or with a tool, and then have to go in and fix that. And
yeah, and if it's not like a lion's face or something really detailed, you almost welcome that, because you're like, okay, well, that's a bit of weathering, and it just creates a little more character as you fix it.
And it's
so you just
it's
you don't
random.
stress about it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's random.
Chaos.
It's just that was a branch that blew by in the last gale, and it bumped the corner, and that's all right.
There it is.
no,
There's one more quick thing. They spied some stuff over Michelle's side of the table that we haven't addressed that they were curious about.
Oh yeah.
You want to show
Look at
that?
those things in the background there.
Yeah.
All right,
These
this will be our outro. We got a little.
Look at that.
this is just a start, and it doesn't want to
This is a perfect
stick.
example of you sort of roughing out, it's like mocking out a thing and say, hey, is this the right approach? Does this feel right?
Yeah, and I sculpted just a small section of this pattern. I worked it, and then made the mold, so I could then just get on, add it to our ashlar rake soffits.
So these are the edges of the roof to give it some different character, make it go nicely with the ashlar.
And at this point, all I've done is temporarily stuck those on to work out the geometry of how the two sections will come together.
Is this going to be a
To-
continuous thing? Is it going to flow? How is it going to flow to this?
Yeah, where do I need to put this, the decorative parts, so that it meets up just right? And it's so much easier when I've got some of the decorative elements designed to then just make these quick, super quick copies. They take me, I can squish these out in 30 seconds and then throw them together.
You do it all the time in a dev meeting. We'll say, well, is this? And 3 minutes later, you pop the picture up. You go, "But what about like this? Oh, there it is.
There. Yeah. And so, and this piece we showed last week, the start of it, just how I was working on it, and had decided that
So these are two, like one is designed to look better on the wood, and one is designed to look better on the ashlar. I'm trying to give variety
Yep.
to the roofs. But there's so same base geometry, two totally different styles.
Yeah. And I decided that
There's a lot going on over here.
Okay.
that this point wasn't thick enough or long enough, so I just pulled it off and changed it.
So nice, that arch.
And then the other thing we've talked about a little bit is we have to be mindful of how are we going to cast it?
Mm-hmm.
How is it?
Every hole, every undercut, every
If it's too hard to mold the piece, it's going to cost an arm and a leg. So we have to cheat wherever possible and make the design as easy as we can to cast, so that we get to make all the pieces.
Well, because that's also one of the other things that we always wrestle with is, well, how much is the damn thing going to cost? Like, is any good?
Yeah.
Can people get it? Can they get a lot of it? Right? All these meetings go, well, we could make it, but is it going to be? Is it feasible? If this thing costs $80, it means nobody's going to get it. Like, what do we?
That's why sometimes we have to give up on the prettier version, because it's like that prettier version, adding that extra cut, doubles the price or something. It's like, do you really want to pay like? It's like with the cattails.
Cattails.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, cattails is a great example, right?
Like absolutely gorgeous. Do you want to pay like $15 for one of them?
Yeah.
Like,
there's a sort of constant dance between aesthetics, practicality, modularity, a sense of reality, like how would this thing actually be made, and like what are people interested in?
What's it going to do on the table?
Yeah.
Right? Are
Is
people
it
even going to
useful
are they
in the
going to
game?
put it
Yeah.
on the table?
Yeah,
Is it going to
yeah.
affect the game? Is it going to be a thing that's going to come out? Is it worth?
Yeah, because if it's totally beautiful and easy to make, but people are like, do we really need the the orcish, whatever it is, the
The old orcish, whatever it is.
the whatchamacallit platform. Oh yeah, I need 15 of those. What does
You'll
it
have
do?
to
I don't
tune
know.
in next
Looks
week to
good.
find out about the whatchamacallit platform. We got to go. I have to go to sleep. I'm dying.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
We'll wrap it up.
Yep.
So,
All right.
so thank you everybody for tuning in. It was so awesome to get you guys on camera here. It's been a lively week. We still got 2 more days of deep development afoot. What's happening tomorrow night? Hobby Hang.
Hamster's Hobby Hang, yeah.
All right, cool.
Usual time, 6 o'clock p.m. Hamster will be painting. Yeah.
Cool. So we got Hobby Hang tomorrow night. We'll be back next week, probably building frantically for Gen Con.
Yeah.
And then the week after that, we'll be doing another Cities Deep Dive. I don't know what we'll be showing at that point, but we'll be diving back in. It's going to be a lot of cities.
It's also going to be days before we go to Gen Con.
Yeah, we'll be looping.
The city stream. It's going to be wild.
Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time to be on camera, and thank you everybody for watching.
Thank
Questions.
you.
We had some really good, and we'll absolutely do this again. Next time we have you guys physically here, let us do another one of these sessions, right? People want to see more of this.
Yep.
Sure.
People were loving it, yeah.
Yeah, this is it. Watching clay get pushed around days and days and days on end. Well, thank you everybody. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Good
Bye.
night.